The massive space station floated in the dark between stars. It was bigger than most planets. Ships from 1,000 different worlds came and went from its docking bays. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the galaxy made their decisions. Inside the main meeting hall, creatures of every shape and size sat in floating chairs. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few seemed to be nothing but glowing gas and metal suits. But they all had one thing in common. They all believed they were better than everyone else. At the center of the hall stood Admiral Vorthak. He was tall and covered in red scales that caught the light. His eyes were yellow and cold. When he smiled, rows of sharp teeth showed. Was the leader of the Dominion fleet, the most feared military force in the galaxy. "Friends," Vorthak said, his voice deep and strong. "Today marks another great day for peace and order in our galaxy." The creatures in the hall made sounds of agreement. Some clapped with hands, others clicked with claws. A few just glowed brighter. Vorthak raised one scaled hand. The hall became quiet. "As you all know, the Dominion fleet has brought civilization to many worlds. We have ended wars. We have stopped violence. We have made the galaxy a safer place." Behind him, a huge screen showed images of space battles, ships exploding, planets burning, cities in ruins. 164 worlds, Vorthak continued. 164 times we gave primitive species a choice. Join the galactic community in peace or face the consequences of their violent nature. The crowd made more happy sounds. To them, these were victories for civilization. Vorthak's smile grew wider. 164 times they chose violence. 164 times we were forced to show them the error of their ways. High above the main hall, on a small observation deck, 3 humans watched the speech. They wore simple gray uniforms with Earth's flag on their shoulders. Commander Harin stood at the front, her dark eyes focused on Vorthak. Behind her, Captain Jinha and Lieutenant Quan watched with growing anger. "Listen to them," Jinha whispered. "They talk about those dead worlds like they were doing them a favor." Harin did not look away from the alien admiral. Every one of those civilizations had families, children, dreams for the future. And now they have nothing. Quan added quietly. Down in the hall, Vorthak was still talking. "The Dominion fleet has never failed. Our technology is the best in the galaxy. Our ships are the fastest and strongest. Our weapons can crack planets. No force has ever stood against us and won." The crowd cheered louder. Some banged their fists on their chairs. Others made screeching sounds of joy. Vorthak waited for quiet again. "Which brings me to our next mission." The screen behind him changed. Now it showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. "The third planet of the Sol system. The locals call it Earth." Harin felt her heart beat faster. This was what they had come to hear. "Initial scans show a primitive civilization," Vorthak said with a wave of his hand. "They have barely left their home planet. Their largest ships are smaller than our escape pods. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and simple energy beams." Laughter filled the hall. To these advanced species, human technology seemed like toys. "They have no unified government," Vorthak continued. "They fight among themselves constantly. They pollute their own world. They are in every way exactly the kind of primitive species that benefits from Dominion guidance." More laughter, more agreement from the crowd. Vorthak's eyes gleamed. "We estimate total pacification in 72 standard hours, possibly less." A creature that looked like a walking tree raised one branch arm. "Admiral, will there be any resistance? Some worlds try to fight back." "Resistance?" Vorthak's laughter was like rocks grinding together. "From humans? They cannot even agree among themselves about simple things. Half their planet worships different invisible beings. They have hundreds of languages and cannot understand each other. They are more likely to help us than fight us." The crowd found this very funny. The idea of humans fighting the Dominion fleet was like ants trying to fight a forest fire. Besides, Vorthak added, Our intelligence reports show they spend most of their time looking at small screens and arguing with each other through their primitive computer networks. They are soft, weak, divided. Up on the observation deck, Harin felt Jinha tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm. "Easy," she whispered. "Let them talk." "But Commander," Quan said through gritted teeth, "they are planning to murder our entire species." "Yes," Harin said simply. "They are." Jinha looked at her in surprise. "You sound calm about it." Harin finally turned away from the window. Her face was serious, but there was something else there. Something that looked almost like excitement. "Do you know what I see when I look at Admiral Vorthak?" she asked. "A monster," Jinha said immediately. "A threat to Earth," Quan added. Harin shook her head. "I see someone who has never failed. Someone who has won every fight for so long that he has forgotten something very important." "What?" both men asked. "He has forgotten that there is always a first time for everything." Down in the hall, Vorthak was wrapping up his speech. "The Dominion fleet will depart for Earth in 3 standard days. We will give the humans the same offer we give all primitive worlds. Submit to galactic law and accept our guidance, or face the consequences." He paused and looked directly up at the observation deck where the humans stood. His yellow eyes locked with Harin's dark ones. "I suspect," he said with a cruel smile, "that like all the others, they will choose violence. And like all the others, they will learn why that choice is always wrong." The crowd erupted in cheers. They began to break up into smaller groups, already discussing how to divide Earth's resources after the conquest. Harin activated a small device on her wrist. It looked like a simple communicator, but the message it sent traveled faster than light itself through quantum channels that the Dominion had never discovered. The message was short. "Storm coming. Begin Prometheus protocol. Show them what we really are." As the 3 humans left the observation deck, Jinha could not help but ask, "Commander, what if we are wrong? What if Earth cannot stand against them?" Harin stopped walking. She turned to look at both men, and for a moment they saw something in her eyes that made them step back. It was not fear or worry. It was something much more dangerous. "Jinha," she said quietly, "do you know what makes humans different from every other species in this galaxy?" "Our technology," Quan guessed. "Our unity?" Jinha tried. Harin shook her head. "Our stubbornness. Every other species accepts what they are told is impossible. When someone stronger comes along, they either submit or fight with what they have." She started walking again, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. "But humans," she continued, "have never accepted that. Anything is truly impossible. When we face something we cannot beat, we do not just fight harder. We become something new. We evolve. We adapt. We find a way." They reached their ship, a small Earth vessel that looked primitive compared to the sleek alien craft around it. "The Admiral down there thinks he knows what humans are," Harin said as they boarded. "He thinks we are just another species with slightly better reflexes and a tendency to fight each other." The ship's engines hummed to life. Through the windows, they could see the massive Dominion warships preparing for departure. "He is about to learn," Harin said with a smile that would have made Vorthak very nervous, "that he has never met anything like humanity before." As their ship left the station and jumped to hyperspace, heading for Earth, none of the alien species paid it any attention. Why would they? It was just a primitive human vessel carrying news of their own doom back to their backward little world. They had no idea that they had just seen the last 3 humans who would ever speak to aliens as equals. The next time the galaxy encountered humanity, the conversation would be very different. 3 days later, Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Conquest. Around him stretched the largest fleet ever assembled by the Dominion. 5,000 ships of war, each one capable of destroying cities with a single shot. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth's solar system. Soon, it would be the site of victory, number 165. "Set course for Earth," he commanded. "It is time to teach these humans their place in the galaxy." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, confident in their power and certain of their victory. They had no idea they were flying toward the end of everything they thought they knew about war, about power, and about what it truly meant to be human. In the darkness between stars, their ships moved toward Earth like a storm of metal and fire. But on Earth, an even greater storm was waiting, a storm called humanity, and it was about to show the galaxy what 4 billion years of evolution could create, when guided by the one thing that made humans truly unique, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. 3 months had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Council. On a quiet Tuesday morning, the Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. The sight was terrible and beautiful at the same time. 5,000 warships dropped, out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The smallest ships were the size of city blocks. The largest were bigger than mountains. They stretched across space like a metal sea, their hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. At the center of this armada was the inevitable Conquest, Admiral Vorthak's flagship. It was a monster of metal and weapons built to break planets and crush the dreams of entire species. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in gun ports and missile tubes. Energy crackled between its weapon arrays like captured lightning. On the bridge of this massive ship, Admiral Vorthak stood before a wall of screens showing Earth. The small blue planet looked so peaceful from here. White clouds swirled over green continents and blue oceans. It looked like the kind of world where nothing bad ever happened. Such a pretty little world, Vorthak said to his crew. It will be almost sad to break it. His tactical officer, a creature that looked like a giant spider made of metal, clicked its claws on its control panel. Admiral, we have completed our scans of the system. And what do our enemies have to defend themselves with? Vorthak asked with amusement in his voice. The spider creature's multiple eyes looked at its screens. Very little, sir. We detect approximately 40 space stations in orbit around Earth. Most appear to be research facilities or communication arrays. We count maybe 200 small patrol ships, none larger than our fighters. Vorthak laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 200 ships? We brought 5,000. This will be even easier than I thought. Another officer, this one looking like a walking tree made of crystal, spoke up. Sir, we also detect defensive platforms around their moon and some of the outer planets, but they appear to be mining operations, not military installations. Of course they are, Vorthak said with a wave of his scaled hand. These humans are so primitive, they probably think we came here to trade with them. The bridge crew made sounds that passed for laughter among their species. The idea of trading with humans seemed very funny to them. Open a channel to all ships, Vorthak commanded. I want every captain to hear this. Thousands of alien faces appeared on screens throughout the fleet. Captains, commanders, and war leaders from a dozen different species. All of them looked hungry for the easy victory to come. My fellow warriors, Vorthak began. Today we add another world to our list of achievements. Earth will be conquest. Number 165. I estimate we will be done before lunch. Laughter echoed through the communication channel. Remember, Vorthak continued, we follow standard procedure. We offer them surrender first. When they refuse, we demonstrate why refusal is foolish. Any questions? A captain who looked like a giant shark with arms raised a fin. Sir, what about their orbital defenses? Should we neutralize them first? Vorthak's smile showed all his sharp teeth. Captain, their entire orbital defense network could not scratch the paint on one of our destroyers. We will ignore their pathetic weapons and focus on the planet itself. And if they try to evacuate? Asked another captain. Let them try, Vorthak said. Their ships are so slow, we could catch them with our shuttles. Besides, where would they go? We control every habitable world within 50 light years. The communication ended, and the fleet began moving toward Earth. 5,000 ships of war sliding through space like predators approaching a helpless prey. On Earth, in a deep bunker buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, the human response was very different. Commander Kwan sat at a control desk surrounded by screens showing the approaching fleet. Around him, Dozens of technicians worked at computers that hummed with quiet efficiency. The room was calm, almost peaceful. No one was panicking. No one was shouting orders. They had been ready for this day for a very long time. "Admiral Rex," Quan said into his headset, "the Dominion fleet has entered our solar system. 5,000 ships, just as we expected." 50 miles away, in another bunker, Admiral Rex Morrison looked at his own screens. He was an older man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had been preparing for this moment for 30 years. "Confirmed, Quan," Rex said calmly. "Are all stations ready?" "All stations report green across the board," Quan replied. "Prometheus Protocol is standing by for your command." Rex nodded. Around him, his staff worked with quiet concentration. These were not people preparing to die. These were people preparing to win. "Jake," Rex said to a younger man at a nearby console. "How are our guests doing?" Dr. Jake Morrison looked up from his screens. He was Rex's son, but right now, he was also Earth's leading expert on alien technology. "They are moving in standard formation, Dad. No surprises. They are doing exactly what our models predicted they would do." "Good," Rex said. "That makes this easier." Back in space, the Dominion fleet was now close enough to Earth to see details on the planet's surface. Vorthak stood on his bridge, watching the blue world grow larger on his screens. "Magnificent," he said to himself. "Soon, all of this will belong to the Dominion." His communication officer, a being that looked like a walking jellyfish, pulsed, with different colors. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it on screen," Vorthak ordered. "Let us hear their surrender." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Commander Harin's face appeared. She was sitting in what looked like a simple military command center. Her expression was completely calm, as if she were discussing the weather instead of facing the destruction of her entire species. "Admiral Vorthak," Harin said in a steady voice, "welcome to the Sol system." Vorthak's eyes widened slightly. This was not what he had expected. Where were the tears? Where was the begging? Where was the fear? "Human," Vorthak said in his most intimidating voice. "I am Admiral Vorthak of the Dominion fleet. You face the might of 5,000 warships. You have seen what happened to 164 other worlds that defied us. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Harin listened to this threat with the same expression she might use while listening to a weather report. When Vorthak finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Admiral," she said finally, "I have a question for you." Vorthak was confused. No species had ever asked him questions during a surrender demand. They usually just begged or made useless threats. "What question?" he asked. "In all of your 164 victories," Harin said, "how many of those species had time to prepare for you?" Vorthak's scales shifted color slightly. This was an odd question. "Prepare? What do you mean?" "I mean," Harin said, with the first hint of a smile, "how many of them knew you were coming months in advance? How many of them had detailed scans of your ships, your weapons, your tactics? How many of them spent decades studying your every victory, learning your every weakness?" The Dominion bridge became very quiet. This was not how these conversations usually went. "None of them," Vorthak admitted. "We maintain operational security. Our targets never know we are coming until we arrive." Harin's smile grew wider. "That's what I thought. Admiral, you have made a critical error in your approach to Earth." "And what error is that?" Vorthak demanded, his voice showing the first hint of concern. Harin leaned back in her chair. Behind her, other humans could be seen working at control panels, all of them looking completely relaxed despite facing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "You assumed," Harin said softly, "that we would be like all the others. You assumed we would panic or beg or make desperate last stands with whatever weapons we happened to have lying around." Vorthak said nothing. His tactical displays were showing the same readings as before. Minimal defenses, primitive technology, easy victory. "But Admiral," Harin continued, "we are not like the others. We knew you were coming. We have been watching you for 50 years. We have studied every battle you have ever fought. We know how your ships work, how your weapons function, how your tactics operate." "Impossible," Vorthak said. but his voice carried less certainty than before. And in all that time, Harin said, her smile becoming something that made several Dominion officers take a step backward, we have been preparing a welcome for you. She leaned forward, and for a moment, Vorthak saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before in any of his previous conquests. Not fear, not desperation, not even defiance. Anticipation. Admiral Vorthak, Harin said quietly, you have won 164 battles against species who fought you with their existing technology, their current abilities, their present level of evolution. The communication channel crackled with interference that the Dominion's advanced systems could not explain. But you have never, Harin said, her voice now carrying harmonics that should not have been possible from a single human throat, fought a species that spent 50 years evolving specifically to kill you. The transmission cut out, leaving the Dominion bridge in stunned silence. For the first time in 2 centuries of conquest, Admiral Vorthak felt something he had almost forgotten existed: doubt. Sir? His tactical officer asked nervously. Should we begin the bombardment? Vorthak stared at the screen where Harin's face had been. Something was very wrong here. In all his conquests, no species had ever spoken to him like that. None had ever looked at his fleet with anything but terror. But pride was stronger than wisdom. Begin the attack, he ordered. All ships, advance to bombardment range. Show these humans why their confidence is misplaced. As the Dominion fleet moved toward Earth, none of them noticed the subtle changes beginning to occur throughout the solar system. Energy readings that their sensors dismissed as background radiation. Gravitational fluctuations that appeared to be natural phenomena. Quantum distortions that registered as simple equipment malfunctions. The storm was coming, and Earth was ready to show the galaxy what humanity had become during 50 years of directed evolution. The real war was about to begin. As the Dominion fleet moved closer to Earth, something began to happen that had never occurred in the history of the galaxy. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in tunnels that ran for thousands of miles under every continent, machines that had waited 50 years for this moment started to wake up. These were not ordinary machines. They were built with technology that did not exist when humans first detected the Dominion's expansion across the galaxy. In the deepest levels of NORAD, now expanded into a vast underground city, Admiral Rex Morrison watched displays that showed energy levels climbing steadily across the planet. The numbers were so high that any alien scientist would have declared them impossible. All stations report ready, said his aide, a young woman named Sarah Kim. Prometheus protocol is fully online. Rex nodded slowly. He looked older than his 60 years, but his eyes were sharp and determined. How long did we work for this day, Sarah? 53 years, 4 months, and 16 days, sir, she replied without hesitation. 53 years, Rex repeated, quietly. 53 years of preparing for visitors we hoped would never come. Around them, hundreds of technicians worked at control stations. The room was filled with soft humming sounds and the glow of computer screens. But there was something else in the air, something that made everyone move with perfect coordination, as if they were all part of the same organism. Dr. Jake Morrison looked up from his station. Dad, the quantum networks are stable. All 8 billion nodes are connected and synchronized. Rex smiled at his son. 8 billion nodes was their code name for every human being on Earth and in the colonies. For the past 20 years, every human child had been born with small biomechanical implants that allowed their brains to connect to a vast quantum network. They could still think independently, but they could also share thoughts, memories, and knowledge instantly with any other human. The Dominion had no idea that they were not facing individual humans. They were facing humanity itself, acting as a single organism with 8 billion minds. Signal Commander Harin, Rex said. Tell her she can begin Phase 2. On Luna Base, Commander Harin sat in a chair that looked ordinary, but was actually connected to quantum processors more powerful than entire Dominion computer networks. Around her, Captain Jinha and Lieutenant Quan monitored displays showing the alien fleet's approach. They are moving into the gravity well, Jinha reported. Maintaining standard attack formation. Ha-Rin closed her eyes. Through the quantum network, she could feel the thoughts and emotions of every human in the solar system. Fear was there, but it was controlled, focused. Anger was there too, cold and sharp as winter wind. And underneath it all was something the Dominion had never encountered before: absolute determination backed by unlimited knowledge. "Jin Ha," she said without opening her eyes. "Activate the solar collectors." "Activating now, Commander." Throughout the solar system, structures that the Dominion had dismissed as simple mining operations began to reveal their true purpose. Massive, energy collectors that had been built into asteroids, moons, and even the planet Jupiter itself started gathering power on a scale that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Dominion sensors detected the energy buildup, but their computers classified it as natural phenomena. Their databases had no reference for technology that could harvest the power of an entire star. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Vorthak was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. His instruments were showing strange readings, but none of his officers could explain what they meant. "Status report," he demanded. His tactical officer clicked nervously. "Sir, we are detecting unusual energy patterns throughout the system. Our computers cannot identify the source." "Natural phenomena?" Vorthak asked hopefully. "Unknown, sir. The readings are unlike anything in our databases." Vorthak's scales shifted to a darker shade of red. In 2 centuries of conquest, his instruments had never failed to analyze enemy technology. "Continue the advance. Primitive humans cannot have anything that our sensors cannot understand." But even as he said it, doubt crept deeper into his mind. On Earth, the awakening was accelerating. In hidden facilities beneath every major city, machines that existed at the intersection of biology and technology came online. These were humanity's greatest achievement: devices that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. Commander Quan, now connected to the quantum network from his position in the Colorado facility, spoke with voices that carried the knowledge of 8 billion minds. "Vorthak." His voice reached the Dominion fleet through communication channels that should not have existed. "You wanted to see our defenses. We are happy to show you what 50 years of directed evolution can accomplish." On the alien flagship, every screen flickered as Quan's transmission came through systems that were supposedly secure. But this was not ordinary radio communication. This was quantum entanglement used as a weapon, forcing information directly into Dominion computers whether they wanted to receive it or not. "How are you doing this?" Vorthak demanded. "Our communications are encrypted." "Encryption," came Quan's reply, and now his voice was joined by others. Ha-Rin's voice, Jinha's voice, Rex's voice, Jake's voice, and beneath them all, a whisper that might have been 8 billion humans speaking as one. "Admiral, encryption assumes your enemy does not understand the basic principles your technology is based on." The main screen on Vorthak's bridge lit up with images that should have been impossible. Technical diagrams of Dominion ships showing details that were classified at the highest levels. Tactical manuals that were supposedly known only to Dominion command. Personal files on Vorthak himself, including conversations he had conducted in sealed rooms with no recording devices present. "For 50 years, the collective human voice continued, we have been inside your networks, your databases, your most secret facilities. We know everything about you, Admiral. Every weakness, every flaw, every single point of failure in your technology." Vorthak's yellow eyes widened in horror. "Impossible. Our security is perfect. No species has ever breached our networks. No species has ever tried to do it the way we did." Ha-Rin's voice emerged from the collective. "Other species try to break your codes, crack your encryption, find backdoors in your software. Very primitive approaches. We simply," Jinha's voice added, "became smarter than your computers. And when you are smarter than the locks, you do not need to pick them. You just ask them to open." Throughout the Dominion fleet, ships began experiencing what their computers reported as system malfunctions. Weapons that refused to charge, engines that stuttered and died, life support systems that flickered on and off. But these were not malfunctions. These were human viruses written in quantum code that existed in 11 dimensions, rewriting Dominion software faster than their computers could detect the changes. "What are you?" Vorthak whispered, his voice filled with the first real fear he had felt in centuries. The answer came from all around him as if the universe itself was speaking. "We are what happens when a species has time to prepare. We are what evolution becomes when it has a specific goal. We are what you created, Admiral. When you gave us 50 years to study every weakness in your empire, space around the Dominion fleet began to shimmer. Stars seemed to bend and twist. The laws of physics themselves appeared to be breaking down. We learned something very important during our preparation," the human collective continued. "Every species you have conquered tried to fight you with better versions of technology you already understood. Bigger guns, stronger shields, faster ships. Vorthak's instruments were now showing readings that violated everything he knew about science. Energy levels that should have torn apart matter itself. Gravitational fields that existed in impossible configurations. Quantum effects that his computers insisted could not occur in normal space. But humans," the voice said, and now it carried harmonics that seemed to come from inside Vorthak's own mind, "do not believe in playing fair." The first Dominion ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, not vaporized. It was there one moment, and the next moment it was not there. It had never been there. Reality itself seemed to forget that it had ever existed. Vorthak stared at his tactical display in shock. According to his sensors, he had arrived at Earth with 4,999 ships, not 5,000. His computers had no record of the missing vessel. His crew had no memory of it. "What did you do?" he screamed. "We learned to edit reality itself, Admiral," came the calm reply. "We learned that the universe is just information, and information can be rewritten. We learned that existence is a choice, and we choose who gets to exist in our space." 2 more ships vanished, then 5, then 20. Each one simply stopped being real, erased from existence so completely that even the memory of them faded from the minds of their crews. Vorthak's fear turned to panic. "All ships, return fire, destroy the planet." But when his weapons officers tried to lock onto Earth, their targeting systems could not find it. According to their instruments, there was nothing in Earth's orbit except empty space. The planet they could see with their eyes did not exist as far as their technology was concerned. "You cannot destroy what you cannot target," the human voice explained with terrifying patience, "and you cannot target what we choose to hide from you." More ships disappeared. The mighty Dominion fleet, terror of the galaxy for 3 centuries, was being systematically erased from existence by an enemy they could not see, could not target, and could not understand. "Please," Vorthak begged, his pride finally breaking. "We can negotiate. We can leave your system. We can forget we were ever here." The laughter that answered him came from 8 billion human throats, carried across quantum dimensions directly into his mind. "Admiral," Haren's voice said gently, "you have already forgotten you were here. You just do not know it yet." Around the inevitable conquest, space itself began to unravel. Stars went out one by one, not because they were destroyed, but because they were being edited out of this section of reality. Vorthak realized in his final moments of existence that he was not fighting an alien species. He was fighting something that had transcended the normal rules of existence itself. "What are you?" he whispered one last time. "We are human," came the reply, as reality closed in around his ship like a closing fist. "We are what you made us, when you gave us time to evolve." The inevitable conquest began to fade from existence, taking Admiral Vorthak and his dreams of conquest with it. But this was only the beginning. The real demonstration of human power was yet to come. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned that humanity was no longer bound by the rules that governed other species. The Dominion fleet, once the terror of 1,000 worlds, found itself trapped in a nightmare that their greatest scientists could not have imagined. Ships continued to vanish from existence, not just destroyed, but completely erased from reality. Crews watched in horror as vessels that had been beside them moments before simply were not there anymore, and never had been. Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his mighty armada disappear piece by piece. His scales had turned pale with fear, and his hands shook as he gripped his command chair. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his tactical officer. The spider-like creature checked its instruments, confusion clear in its multiple eyes. "Sir, according to our records, we arrived with 2,000 ships." Vorthak's blood turned to ice. They had arrived with 5,000, but the records showed 2,000. Reality itself was being rewritten around them. "No," he whispered. "We had 5,000. I remember 5,000. "Sir," his communications officer said nervously, "I have no record of us ever having more than 2,000 ships in this fleet." As they spoke, more vessels faded from existence. The number dropped to 1,500, then 1,000, then 500. Each time, the records changed to match the new reality. Only Vorthak seemed to remember what they had originally brought. On By Earth, in the deep command bunkers, humanity watched their enemy's destruction with calm satisfaction. Through the quantum network, 8 billion minds worked as one, calculating probabilities, adjusting reality, and systematically erasing every trace of the Dominion threat. Dr. Jake Morrison monitored the probability engines from his station deep, beneath the Pacific Ocean. These machines did not just predict the future, they chose which possible future would become real. "Temporal locks are holding steady," he reported to the collective consciousness. "We are not just removing them from now, we are removing them from having ever existed." Commander Harin, still connected to the network from Luna Base, felt the thoughts of every human as if they were her own thoughts. The experience was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. Individual human minds, each unique and precious, all working together toward a single goal. "Captain Jinha," she said, her voice carrying the harmonics of billions of synchronized minds. "Begin Phase 3. Jinha nodded and activated controls that reached across the solar system. Suddenly, every piece of human technology, from the smallest communication device to the massive planetary defense networks, began operating at levels that defied physics. The fusion reactors that powered Earth cities suddenly produced energy outputs that should have created black holes. The quantum computers that managed global communications began processing information faster than light could travel. The magnetic field generators that protected Earth from solar radiation started creating gravitational effects that bent space-time itself. But the most terrifying thing was not the technology. It was the precision with which it was being used. Every energy beam that lanced out from Earth's hidden weapons hit its target exactly. Every gravitational pulse struck at precisely the right moment to cause maximum damage. Every quantum virus infiltrated Dominion systems at the perfect instant to cause complete system failure. 8 billion human minds, working as one, had become a weapon more precise than any computer and more powerful than any force in the galaxy. Admiral Rex Morrison watched from his command center as the Dominion fleet continued to shrink. "Status report on enemy forces," he requested. 300 ships remaining, came the reply from his aide, all showing signs of system failure. Their weapons are offline, their engines are failing, their life support is becoming unreliable. Rex nodded slowly. "And their leadership?" On the main screen, Admiral Vorthak's face appeared. The proud alien commander who had boasted of 164 victories now looked like a broken creature. His yellow eyes darted around frantically, searching for an enemy he could not see or understand. "Admiral Vorthak," Rex said calmly, his voice reaching the alien ship through quantum channels that bypassed every form of encryption. "Do you understand now what you are facing?" Vorthak's image flickered as reality distortions affected even their communications. "What are you?" he demanded, his voice cracking with desperation. "What have you become?" "We are still human," Rex replied with quiet authority. "But we are human with a purpose. Every member of our species, from our youngest child to our oldest, elder, has spent their entire life preparing for this day. Through the quantum network, Rex could feel the memories and experiences of every person on Earth. Children who had learned advanced physics before they could walk, teenagers who had mastered quantum mechanics as easily as previous generations had learned to drive cars, adults who had spent decades studying every aspect of Dominion technology and tactics. You see, Rex continued, other species evolve slowly, randomly, without direction. They adapt to their environment as it changes around them. But humans learned to control our own evolution. We decided what we wanted to become, and then we became it. Lieutenant Kwan's voice joined the communication from his bunker in Colorado. For 50 years, Admiral, every human child was born knowing that someday they would face the Dominion fleet. We raised 8 billion people whose entire purpose in life was to be ready for you. More Dominion ships vanished. The fleet that had terrorized the galaxy was now down to fewer than 100 vessels. Vorthak looked around his bridge at his remaining crew. They were all staring at their instruments in confusion, unable to understand how their mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy they could not even detect. Please, Vorthak begged, his pride finally completely shattered. We can leave. We can forget this world exists. We will never return. Commander Harin's laughter reached him from Luna Base, but it was not cruel laughter. It was the laughter of someone who had worked their entire life for this moment and finally achieved their goal. Admiral, she said gently, you still do not understand. This is not about driving you away from Earth. This is not about protecting just our world. Then what is it about? Vorthak asked desperately. This is about making sure, Captain Jinha's voice added to the communication, that you never threaten anyone, anywhere, ever again. The space around the remaining Dominion ships began to ripple like water. Stars seemed to bend and twist as reality itself was being rewritten on a massive scale. You conquered 164 worlds, Commander Kwan said, his voice now carrying the authority of 8 billion minds. You destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. You erased cultures, knowledge, and dreams that can never be replaced. We cannot bring back those worlds, Dr. Jake Morrison added from his deep ocean facility. But we can make sure that what you did to them never happens again. Vorthak watched in horror as his flagship began to shimmer around the edges. The hull was becoming transparent, as if it was fading from reality itself. What are you doing to us? He screamed. We are not destroying you, Admiral Rex Morrison said with calm finality. Destruction would leave wreckage. It would leave evidence. It would leave memories. The collective voice of humanity spoke through all their representatives at once, creating harmonics that seemed to come from the fabric of space itself. We are making it so you never existed, not just now, but ever. We are editing the timeline itself so that the Dominion Empire never rose to power. The 164 worlds you destroyed will wake up tomorrow morning as if you had never come to their systems. Vorthak's eyes widened as he finally understood the true scope of what humanity had become. They were not just defending their world. They were rewriting galactic history itself. That is impossible, he whispered. No species has that kind of power. No species ever had 8 billion minds working as one, Harin replied. No species ever spent 50 years preparing for a single battle. No species ever evolved specifically to destroy a particular enemy. The inevitable conquest was now almost completely transparent. Through its fading hull, Vorthak could see stars that should not have been visible. But most importantly, the collective human voice continued. No species ever had humanity's greatest weapon. What weapon? Vorthak asked, his voice barely a whisper as his existence began to fade. Hope, came the reply. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every species you might threaten in the future. We fight for worlds that do not even know we exist. We fight because someone has to stand between predators and prey. As the last of the Dominion fleet faded from existence, Admiral Vorthak had one final moment of clarity. He realized that humanity had not just defeated the Dominion Empire. They had become something that would protect the galaxy from threats like the Dominion forever. What have we awakened? He whispered as reality closed around him. The last thing he heard was the voice of 8 billion humans speaking as one. You have awakened humanity, Admiral, and the galaxy will never be the same. The inevitable conquest completed its fade from existence, taking with it the last memory of the Dominion Empire's greatest fleet. But the real work was just beginning. Humanity had shown they could erase a threat from existence. Now, they had to make sure it stayed erased. Forever. The silence that followed was deeper than the space between stars. Where the Dominion fleet had been, there was now nothing. Not wreckage, not debris, not even the fading heat signatures that usually marked a battle. There was simply empty space, as if 5,000 warships had never existed at all. On Earth, in the deep command centers that had coordinated humanity's greatest victory, the lights slowly dimmed as the quantum networks powered down to standby levels. The immediate threat was over, but the real work was just beginning. Admiral Rex Morrison stood in his bunker, watching displays that showed the ripple effects of what humanity had done. Across the galaxy, changes were spreading like waves through water. History itself was being rewritten as the timeline adjusted to accommodate the erasure of the Dominion Empire. Status report, he said quietly to his staff. Dr. Jake Morrison looked up from his quantum computers, exhaustion clear on his young face. The probability cascades are stable, Dad. The timeline is accepting the changes without major paradoxes. As far as the universe is concerned, the Dominion Empire never existed. Rex nodded slowly. And the affected worlds? All 164 systems that were destroyed by the Dominion are now showing as inhabited and thriving. Jake replied with a tired smile. The species that were wiped out are alive again. Their civilizations are developing naturally, as they would have if the Dominion had never attacked them. On Luna Base, Commander Harin sat in her chair, still connected to the quantum network but at a much lower level now. The sensation of being linked to 8 billion minds was fading, leaving her feeling strangely alone despite being surrounded by her crew. Captain Jin Ha approached her station. Commander, we are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Harin looked up at him. What kind of transmissions? Confused ones, Jinha said with a slight smile. Navigation computers that cannot plot courses to certain regions of space. Ships that were ordered to patrol sectors that apparently do not exist. Military commands looking for fleets that were never built. Lieutenant Kwan's voice came through the communication system from his Colorado bunker. The Galactic Council is in chaos. They keep trying to hold meetings, but they feel like someone important is missing from their discussions. They just cannot remember who. Harin nodded. This was expected. When you remove something as large as the Dominion Empire from history, it leaves gaps. People would feel those gaps without understanding what they were feeling. Any signs that they are discovering the truth, she asked. None so far, Kwan replied. The quantum viruses are still active in their systems, editing records and memories as needed. As far as the galaxy is concerned, there was never a Dominion Empire. There was never an Admiral Vorthak. There was never a fleet of conquest. Rex Morrison's voice joined the communication from Earth. What about Earth's status? Are we still hidden? Jake Morrison answered from his deep ocean laboratory. Completely invisible, Dad. To every scanner, every database, every navigation system in the galaxy, the Sol system is empty space. They cannot see us, detect us, or even think about looking for us unless we want them to. This had been part of the plan from the beginning. Humanity had not just defended Earth, they had removed it from galactic awareness entirely. Every star chart now showed empty space where the solar system should be. Every long-range sensor read nothing but cosmic background radiation when pointed toward Earth. The human race had become invisible to the galaxy, but that invisibility came with a purpose. 3 months after the battle that never happened, the effects of humanity's actions were spreading throughout the galaxy in ways that no one could understand. On the world of Zephyria, a peaceful species of blue-skinned traders had been planning to expand their shipping routes into a dangerous region of space known for pirate attacks. But every time they tried to plan the expansion, their computers would malfunction and suggest safer alternatives. They never knew that in the original timeline those pirates had been Dominion allies who would have enslaved their entire species. On Crystallon, a civilization of living crystals had been developing weapons to defend against rumors of a great conquering fleet, but the rumors faded from their collective memory, and instead they found themselves inspired to focus on art and philosophy. They never learned that the fleet they had feared was already gone, erased before it could threaten them. In the Andromeda sector, 3 species that had been bitter enemies found themselves mysteriously drawn to peace negotiations. Ancient hatreds seemed less important. Old grudges felt foolish. They never realized that their conflicts had been secretly encouraged by Dominion agents who wanted them weak and divided. Across the galaxy, wars ended for reasons no one could explain. Peaceful species found themselves strangely safe from threats that had been building for decades. Aggressive empires discovered that their expansion plans kept falling apart due to equipment failures and communication breakdowns. The galaxy was becoming a more peaceful place, and no one knew why. On Earth, humanity watched and guided these changes with the careful touch of 8 billion minds working in harmony. They had become the galaxy's invisible guardians, protecting species that would never know they existed. Commander Harin stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at the stars. The same stars that had once seemed full of threats now looked peaceful and safe. Captain Jinha joined her at the window. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked quietly. Harin considered the question. By erasing the Dominion from history, humanity had saved countless lives and prevented immeasurable suffering. But they had also taken the choice away from an entire empire. Billions of Dominion citizens who might have been good people had been wiped from existence along with their leaders. "I think," she said finally, "that we did what was necessary. The Dominion had proven what they were by destroying 164 worlds. They were not going to change. They were not going to stop. Someone had to stop them. And now we are the Watchers," Jinha said. "The unseen guardians." Harin nodded. "Every species in the galaxy can now develop naturally, without fear of conquest. They can explore, create, and grow without looking over their shoulders for predators." Lieutenant Kwan's voice reached them through the quantum network. "New situation developing in the Rigel system. A species called the Vorthanians is showing signs of aggressive expansion. They are building a fleet and making threats against their neighbors." Harin sighed. "Options?" Admiral Rex Morrison's voice joined the network from Earth. "We can use the same methods we used against the Dominion. Edit them out of existence before they become a threat." "No," Harin said firmly. "The Dominion was a proven threat that had already destroyed 164 civilizations. These Vorthanians might still choose a different path." Dr. Jake Morrison spoke up from his ocean laboratory. "I have a suggestion. What if we just help them make better choices?" "Explain," Harin requested. "Subtle influences," Jake said. "Computer glitches that make aggressive plans seem less attractive. Communication errors that prevent military coordination. Equipment failures that make peaceful solutions more appealing than violent ones." Harin smiled. "Give them the chance to be better than they are showing signs of being." "Exactly," Jake replied. "We guide them toward peace instead of erasing them for choosing war." This became humanity's new mission. Invisible guardians who nudged aggressive species toward peaceful solutions. Silent protectors who made sure that no empire could grow large enough to threaten the innocent. They were the galaxy's immune system, fighting off threats before they could spread. Years passed. The galaxy grew more peaceful. Trade flourished between species that had once been enemies. Art and science advanced as civilizations no longer needed to spend their resources on weapons of conquest. And through it all, humanity remained hidden, watching from their invisible world, ready to act if any new threat emerged. Commander Harin, now older and grayer, still stood watch on Luna Base. The quantum network still connected her to every human in the solar system. But the connection felt comfortable now, like a warm embrace from family. "Do you ever wonder," Captain Jinha asked during one of their regular conversations. If the galaxy will ever be ready to know about us? Harin looked out at the peaceful stars. Maybe someday, when they no longer need guardians, when they have learned to protect themselves and each other without our help. And until then we wait, we watch, we protect. She smiled at her old friend. We remain human, even if the galaxy has forgotten what that means. In the depths of space, Earth continued its ancient orbit around a star that, according to every map in the galaxy, did not exist. And in the darkness between stars, quantum whispers carried a message that no alien ear could hear, but every alien heart could feel. Here lives hope. Here lives the fire that turns the impossible into the inevitable. Here lives the species that refuse to let evil triumph. Sleep safely, galaxy. You are protected. The universe had learned what it meant to be human. It just could not remember how, but in the deepest, safest part of every alien mind, there lived a truth they could not forget. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, guardians were watching. And that was enough. The end in honor of humanity. The species that evolution could not contain, and that chose to become the galaxy's hidden light in the darkness. Forever.